All right, thank you. Next one here is from Barbara Mahler, health coach from Colorado. She says, I'm curious if you've had a chance to explore Dr. Gundry's latest book. He quotes reference materials that indicate a greater amount of non-inflammatory carbohydrates may actually be more beneficial in some individuals. She doesn't say more beneficial in what. This gives greater flexibility around getting clients into ketosis, and the ketones are not necessarily the superior source of energy that has been promoted. I would love to hear your input on the research. So first of all, Stephen's a friend, great guy. He's an excellent surgeon. He's an excellent functional medicine doctor. I love his work. The difference is right now, he's not publishing, here's what happened to people with cognitive decline. He's looking at general health. He's looking at cardiovascular disease. He's looking at weight. He's looking at a lot of things that are critical for your optimal health. That's fantastic. But he's not specifically looking at people who have Alzheimer's disease. So we want to look again at what is the biochemical process that leads to Alzheimer's and pre-Alzheimer's and MCI, SCI, et cetera. We want to be able to prevent and reverse the decline. In general, what's been published has been not only by us, but by others, Dr. Stephen Kinane, for example, really nice results with just exogenous ketones, getting clear improvements in patients with MCI. So again, as we've talked about many times, we want to get people to be insulin sensitive so that they can utilize glucose. We want to get people to be able to be ketone adapted so that you can make and utilize ketones. And again, even starting with some exogenous, great. And most of us have lost both of those as we're getting a little older. There's some new work that's going to come out now from Rick Johnson in Colorado with co-authors David Perlmutter, myself, and a few other people. He's really showing that, at least theoretically, one of the worst things you can do for your brain is fructose. And he has beautiful biochemistry to support that. So I think, we've always talked about this, but I think you have to be really, more and more, we're going to be able to focus on specific things that are going to help your cognition. And I'd say that most of us have found that people who don't get into ketosis don't do as well as the people who do get into ketosis. And I think it's fair to say that in the trial, people were getting into ketosis very well, and most of them were getting better. 84% got better on their neurocognitive indices. So I would argue that, yes, fine to have those non-inflammatory complex carbs for smoothing things out and for a time off from your high good fats diet. But in general, avoiding ketosis is so far with what we've found is not a good idea in people where you're trying to reverse their cognitive decline. Again, we want to increase the energetic support for the brain. And what's been your experience with your patients?
I share a number of patients with Dr. Gundry, and he's very good. Yeah. When he's criticizing the keto diet, you have to realize that he's talking about the typical high saturated fat keto diet.
Yeah, different keto diet.
We're talking KetoFLEX 12-3. And, constantly people are sending me things like, here's a bad thing about keto. Here's another bad thing about keto that I read. Here's another person who's criticizing keto. And almost all of that is not the case when you're talking about the KetoFLEX that we use, which is a plant-based keto diet, right? Anyway, so I just want to make that point, right? Because it is different to talk about, a diet that's very high in butter and fatty beef and lots of cheese. Yeah. And right. You could just eat those foods and be keto, just beef and butter and cheese. That would be a keto diet. That would not be our diet, right? So it's an important distinction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that Aida has said many times, it's too bad that you guys called it KetoFLEX 12-3 because keto gets people mixed up. But the problem is we do want that ketosis. The ketones, no question, are part of the energetics for your brain. And again, Kinane's studies have shown, as have others, this is a good thing for your brain. You need to be able to use both. At the same time, you're absolutely right. People immediately think about bacon and ham and stuff like this. And we have to make it very clear This is a plant-rich, mildly ketogenic diet with lots of fiber, lots of phytonutrients, and appropriate fasting periods, and good fats, not so much saturated fat, so that we can get all the benefits of the energetics. Again, we're just trying to make it so your brain has enough energetics. It needs the oxygen, it needs the ketones, it needs the glucose. It shouldn't be having the fructose, which is reducing the ATP. All these things, bad news. So you got to get, again, it's not magic. It's just biochemistry. You got to get those synapses so that they have everything that they need to make and keep their connections. And so, yeah, I think ketosis is an important part of this, as is controlling your immune system. And again, we see this all the time where people just can't get out of that chronic inflammatory state. And so they're not going to get better until they do that, or they haven't addressed their sleep apnea, and they're not going to get better until they do that. So with all due respect to Dr. Gundry, whom we all love, and by the way, he's also an excellent singer. He's a multi-talented guy. But I think in this case, we're talking about KetoFLEX 12.3. When we hope, by the way, that KetoFLEX 12.3 will be available pretty soon, working with Nutrition for Longevity, so that you'll just be able to have people have it come to their homes, much like they're doing with the fasting mimicking diet right now. So I hope that
wow, that is so great, Dale. I did not know that.
Yeah, and so we've been testing it over the last month. And I have to say, I was very skeptical when they sent some here, and I thought, oh, this stuff is going to be this horrible processed garbage. I was shocked. It's really delicious. I was really impressed. So I give great kudos to Nutrition for Longevity. They're really trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to get diets. And they listened exactly to here's what we need. It's got to be plant rich. It's got to be mildly ketogenic. So I checked my ketones when I ate it, and sure enough, it is a plant rich, delicious, mildly ketogenic diet. I really was impressed. And so that's ongoing, and my hope is that it'll be available for everyone. And by the way, it should be mostly covered by Medicare. That'll be the other really nice thing. So that'll I think that'll be really help many people to get into ketosis.
That would be amazing. Covered by Medicare. Wow.
Yeah. It'll be, and as I understand it, they'll be covering most, but not all of it. So at least some of the meals, which will be nice.